The 16th of December, 6 games before we go into a weird two-day void with only one game, no fantasy. Let's talk about those 6 games. Let's talk about LaMelo Ball potentially coming back and Joel Embiid not coming back. This is the Monday pregame show. Let's go Balls deep.
I'm the type to get shit done. You the type to observe. March Madness on my speakers, but today's November 23rd. Got something loud in the blunt, yeah. I don't say what I want, yeah. Probably somewhere sunny getting tan. Foreign women in the sun, yeah. That's all that I need. That's all that I need. That's all that I need. Got my brothers with me. Got my brothers with me, and my mama's healthy. That's all that I need.
Welcome to the Balls Deep podcast, brought to you by Fantasy Basketball International. I'm your host, Adam King. Find me on Twitter at AdamKing91 and on Blue Sky at AdamKing91.bsky.social. We are on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere, everywhere. Please go and find us, subscribe to us, and download episodes. We are part of the Old Man Squad at Old Man Squad on Twitter, at Dan Besbris, DanBesbris, and at oldmansquad.bsky.social, I think. Let's get into the 6 games. A little bit of injury news that I woke up to. I was less surprised than I was with the DeAndre Ayton news. Maybe not. Maybe the same. Joel Embiid is out for a week. Sinus fracture. He will be reevaluated in a week. So he will miss 3 games at least, and then they will reevaluate him. Yeah, I think this is fairly standard. We roll out a little bit of Gershon Yabusele again. Andre Drummond might come back into streaming consideration, but there's just going to be more to do again for Tyrese Maxey and Paul George. Kelly Oubre probably holds on to his value, especially with Jared McCain out. Some value there for him. Right button. First game, Miami at Detroit. As I said, there are 6 games tonight, and then we have 1 game tomorrow, which is the in-season tournament final, but that is not a fantasy relevant game, so there's no active fantasy players tomorrow, and then the following day, Wednesday, is a day off before we get into the ramp up to Christmas, and of course, Christmas Day, big day over here in Australia because we just get up at 4 a.m. and watch basketball for 12 hours. So, Miami, no sort of breaking news, nothing here that's going to have too much of an impact. Pele Larson is out. Josh Richardson is out. Nikola Jovic is out. We're looking at Terry Rozier. Maybe he gets things going here in a somewhat favourable matchup against Detroit. So if he's available and you need some points and you want to take a bit of a flyer, go and give Terry Rozier a look. Haywood Highsmith will continue to start but isn't really doing enough. And Duncan Robinson, very hit or miss. Threes, maybe you get some, maybe you don't. Take a chance. For Detroit, Jalen Duren is off the injury report, so he will play, but Tobias Harris has been ruled out. He was ruled out yesterday. So we could see Fontecchio come into the starting lineup. I doubt it will be Isaiah Stewart, given what we've seen this season. They're playing him purely as a backup 5, so probably no bump for Isaiah Stewart. Maybe we get a little bit of more of Ron Holland. It'll just depend if they want to go small here. They could, because Miami are a team that you can go small against with only Bam Adebayo and then maybe Kevin Love. With no Thomas Bryant there, we might see some more Khalil Ware. But maybe they do go small and play Beasley and Hardaway alongside each other a little bit. And Asar Thompson, we're just keeping an eye on his minutes. He hasn't really been playing enough to be rostered. I think the ceiling is still there, but I'm not sure whether he gets to it anytime soon. Game number 2, Philadelphia at Charlotte. So the aforementioned Sixers and Hornets. No Joel Embiid. So I'm not sure sort of what we see here. Whether Drummond starts at centre against Mark Williams, Nick Richards, you probably do need a little bit of size out there. So there is a chance that Drummond starts tonight and plays 20, 25 minutes. And that's worth a look if you need rebounds and maybe some steals. Gershon Yabusele had been starting. He went back to the bench. He's been okay. I think I'd rather take a chance on Drummond, but Yabusele has been interesting this season. And with no Jared McCain for however long, this could be season ending, to be honest, depending on where the Sixers are sitting in 2 months' time. So we can go ahead and drop Jared McCain. Kyle Lowry's off the injury report, but he's not doing anything. We're probably looking at, some guys. KJ Martin's been playing okay. Kelly Oubre, if he's available, I managed to pick him up in one league last night. And Ricky Council has been interesting, I think is a good way to put it. I'm not sure he plays enough minutes. Let me have a look at his game log from the last few games. He certainly benefits from the McCain injury. And in terms of who's available, maybe he is the priority because Kelly Oubre, he's likely not available in most leagues. Okay, so Ricky Council, in the last game, he played 22 minutes, had 14-9 with a steal and a block. Percentages, not great. Had a couple of games off, 9 points, 2 points, 17 points, 12 points. Look, I think he's been okay. I'm not sure he's worth an add in a 12-team league. I'd probably monitor. But if there's no one else available and you just want to take a chance on him, then go ahead. For the Hornets, if LaMelo returns, we move on from Micic. If Ball doesn't play, we hold on to Micic for one more game. LaMelo is going to warm up, I believe, with the intention to play. And let me see. Yes. And see how he feels. So this will be a true game time decision. Luckily, they do play early. They've got the first time slot of the night. So we should know before lineups lock whether LaMelo is playing. Mark Williams played in both halves in the last game. He started. So we will assume a slight increase every game moving forward. So I think he played about 17 or 18 minutes. So maybe we hit 20 in this one. They do play 3 times this week, but they do have a back-to-back. So just keep in mind with Mark Williams, there is a chance that they rest him for one of those games, which would mean Nick Richards would be a really nice streaming option in one of those games. They play Philly twice, I believe. So with no Embiid, maybe Nick Richards is someone you want to hold just in case Williams does sit one of those games. As I said, Micic, hold him if LaMelo doesn't play. Keeping in mind with that back-to-back, LaMelo maybe misses a game too. So maybe Micic does have one more game in him, even if Ball returns. And then we're looking, Josh Green, no. I don't think so. Cody Martin, no. So that's really all we're looking at in that game. Chicago at Toronto for the Bulls. Vooch is probable to return from an illness. Zach LaVine downgraded to questionable with, I think, back injury or back spasms. So just monitor that. If he misses time, we probably get, I would assume, Patrick Williams. But given he is coming off an injury of his own, maybe we get a Matas Buzelis starting sighting, which that would be great. Dosunmu will just continue to do a little bit more. So a bit of a bump for all those starters if LaVine does miss time. Lonzo Ball, probable to play, so they're just listing him in relation to his return to action from the knee injury. He's looked pretty good. I don't think 20 minutes is enough. If he gets to 25, somehow, which I don't see it happening, but yeah, it would take, I don't know. I mean, Giddey hasn't been dynamic, but he's been better lately. I don't know. Maybe there is a path to Lonzo playing 25 minutes. I'm not sure there is, but yeah, keep an eye on him. Stream him in if you want to. Jalen Smith, if Vooch for some reason doesn't play, Jalen Smith would be the pickup, but we will assume that Vooch plays. For the Raptors, still no Emmanuel Quickley, still no Scotty Barnes. I think it sounds like both are probably out for the rest of the month at least. Quickley, maybe not, but he is still, I think, at least 1 to 2 weeks away. So we know who we're going with here. Ochai Agbaji, pretty low ceiling, but playing minutes. Jonathan Mobo, if he starts, if he needs some defensive stuff, rebounds, he's very raw offensively, but he's fine. Not super appealing. Kelly Olynyk has been a bit underwhelming since returning. Just not playing enough minutes, really. So I don't think we need to be rostering him at this stage. If he does get up over 20 minutes, then we reevaluate. But at this point, no reason. Cleveland at Brooklyn. Evan Mobley probable to return from his ankle sprain is really the only impactful news. Interesting that Max Strus continues to be ruled out, yet he was very close like 2 or 3 games ago. So I don't know whether he suffered a setback that they haven't told us about. No word. But yeah, he was sort of on the verge of returning. I remember we were looking at picking him up. But yeah, no sign of him coming back. He might come back the next game, but it's just a bit weird. But they're relatively healthy, so no real streaming value here. LeVert is really the only one that interests me at all. For the Nets, going to be curious to see what their rotation looks like tonight. We know they traded away Dennis Schroeder. They got D'Anthony Melton back, but Melton is down for the season, so he won't feature at all. So this opens up minutes for Ben Simmons, Keon Johnson, Jalen Wilson, Shake Milton, maybe Derek Whitehead. I don't think they're going to play Whitehead based on what we've seen. So it's one of those first 4. Ben Simmons, I don't know. I mean, he obviously would make sense as the starting point guard, but playing him alongside Claxton is not ideal. Maybe they do go with that. Maybe they go with Shake Milton. I added Shake Milton in a 16-team league last night just to see. It might work out, it might not. I wouldn't necessarily take tonight's game as a reflection of what we'll see moving forward, because we do know that if Keon Johnson starts and he's just got a hot hand, he might play 34 minutes. But in the next game, if he's struggling, he might only play 22, which makes it really hard for fantasy. But let's have a look at who's first off the bench. Who's playing where in the rotation, at least in the first half. That'll give us a bit of an idea. This could be over by halftime. So, yeah, it's sort of a watch and learn situation. But, yeah, I would take a flyer on Jalen Wilson, Shake Milton, Keon, or Ben Simmons and see how we go. Denver at Sacramento for the Nuggets. Jamal Murray probable to return. Christian Brown downgraded to questionable. If Brown misses time, it's probably Julian Strawther, I would think, that would come into the starting lineup, and he would be worth a look if you need points and threes. Westbrook, when they're healthy, tends to not do enough unless you're punting a lot of categories. And Peyton Watson, obviously, he has regressed a little bit with Aaron Gordon back and healthy. For the Sacramento Kings, Kevin Huerter downgraded to out. We can move on from him. He just keeps getting injured. I don't know what's going on, but he looks okay. He had a good opportunity to play minutes because Keon Ellis was being squeezed out or phased out, and then he gets injured. So move on from Huerter. We roster all 5 starters. Keegan Murray is questionable. If he misses time here, it's probably it's probably Keon Ellis who comes in. It does make them quite small. I just don't really see it. With Trey Lyles also out, he would be the one that would come in if he was healthy. But yeah, they're a little bit thin. Isaac Jones, I've talked about him previously. He's intriguing, but I don't think plays enough, and I don't think they would start him alongside Sabonis. So just keep an eye on Keegan Murray's status. But Keon Ellis may be worth a flyer if you need steals tonight. And they do have 4 games this week, Sacramento. So they're the only team with 4 games. So, yeah, maybe you do get a nice week from him. And last game of the night. Utah at Los Angeles playing the Clippers. For Utah, Jordan Clarkson probable with his ongoing plantar fasciitis. His presence impacts Colin Sexton the most, as we saw in the last game. Sexton was trash. He just didn't play well, and Clarkson was hot. So probably not an accurate reflection of what we're going to see nightly. But it certainly makes Sexton more fringy than must roster. I am still holding him in a couple of spots because before last game, he'd sort of been okay. He was averaging about 16 points, 3.5 assists, a couple of threes. So he'd been playing okay. I still really hope he gets moved for his sake. Kessler played big minutes in that last game despite the team being relatively healthy, so that's a good indication. But as they are relatively healthy, not a lot of streaming value at the moment in Utah. And for the Clippers, Derek Jones continues to be out, as is Terrence Mann and, of course, Kawhi Leonard. So Nicholas Batum will start. We're not rostering him. Chris Dunn, if you need steals. Kevin Porter's been better. Still not fantastic, but minutes in the mid-20s, deeper leagues, he's worth consideration for streaming. Jordan Miller, not playing enough. I do like seeing him out there, but he's not really playing enough. So that's probably all the fantasy stuff tonight. Let's have a look. Well, actually, let's move that. Let's have some questions. Is McBride still a hold in Dynasty? No, it's not my specialty. I think he's probably still a hold because I still do think he is only one injury away from stepping into a must roster role. In terms of what do we see in 3 years, 4 years, it probably depends on where he is. I think he has the ability to be a viable sort of fantasy asset for the next few years. But a lot of it will come down to opportunity, I think, for him. Because I just don't see him surpassing anyone on that Knicks rotation at the moment. But, of course, that could change. 3 years is a long time. 4 years is a long time. So at the moment, I think he's probably still a hold. But with that said, I'm not sure his ceiling is stupidly high that you need to be sort of falling over yourself to hold him. If you can grab someone. Again, Dynasty depends if you're playing to win now or win in 5 years. His council ad, like I said, very borderline, I think, for me. Flyer and then see what happens. Should I keep Vassell or take Keontae Bilal? Yeah, that last game was atrocious. Look, I think Vassell is quite clearly the best player there. If this is a 1-for-1, so Vassell for Keontae or Vassell for Bilal, I would take Vassell. If it's Vassell for both in a trade or something like that, then it's pretty close. If it's 1-for-2, think we see more Kelly versus centre like Vooch. Maybe. I hope so. I'd love to see Kelly out there a bit more. It's been very disappointing. I guess it depends on the score, that sort of thing. A lot of these matches do. But yeah, I would love to see more of Kelly Olynyk. Weren't they toying with playing Russ and Murray together? I think they were at one point. I'm not sure whether there's been no indication that that's going to be a big part of the rotation. They might experiment from time to time. Is Shake Milton a 14-team ad or Keon Johnson? Like I said, I added Shake Milton in a 16-team league. We do have shallow rosters in that, so it's probably more of a 14-team league equivalent. Look, I think both are worth a look, along with Jalen Wilson. So it's a roll of the dice. You might get lucky, you might not. But Milton, we have seen in the past very small sample sizes of him running an offense, so he has it in him. So if you are looking more for assists, which I am, that's why I went with Milton over those other guys. So for one, yeah, I'd hold Vassell. Murray's suffering from plantar fasciitis. Yeah, there's a few players who have been dealing with that this year. I think Anthony Davis is dealing with that. I think we know Jordan Clarkson is. We know Murray is, and I'm sure there's someone else who's dealing with plantar fasciitis. I can't think. Anyway, it is. It's a very tricky injury, and as we've seen, rest is really all you can do to get rid of it. Anthony Davis continues to play through it, which would mean it's probably not that serious, whereas Jordan Clarkson missed 3 weeks maybe, and he's still on the injury report as a result of it. So it is, it is very, very tricky. Need to get off Misic. If we do, as we've said, if we get word that that Ball is out tonight, then if you can pick up Milton or Keon Johnson and drop Misic, I would absolutely do that. And yes, Shining Knight, correct. Plantar fasciitis, rest is the biggest factor. But as we know, NBA teams tend to not give their players enough rest. We see it all the time with hamstring and calf injuries. They give them a week, if that. I've said it ad nauseum. I know Josh says it a lot on his show, that here in sports here in Australia, hamstrings are a month, basically, even a grade 1. Very different. Sports here are different. We don't have the workload that they have over there. So, but we do see it. We saw it with Halliburton last year, and a lot of these players, especially as they get a little bit older, just the recurrence of hamstring injuries and calf injuries and things like that. It generally has to be a fairly significant tear for a team to go, okay, we need to give you time off, like we saw with Cat a couple of years ago when he missed 2 months. That's correct. Missing 3 games is not. So anyway. All right, one final question before I get out of here. Any 12-team appeal for Ben Simmons now that he may be starting? Only 2 possible drops are Sharp and Brown. Look, I think there is 12-team appeal. I don't think they're going to push him beyond 25 minutes. We haven't seen any indication of that this year. He's tough to play alongside Nick Claxton. It just creates a logjam inside. So I think there's appeal there. Comparing to Sharp and Brown, I would hold Brown over Simmons, I think. I know he's been a little bit down this season, but the last week or so. But I still do think that he's sort of a top 70 player rest of season. Sharp is interesting. He's probably a hold because he scores a lot. Points are generally hard to come by. But that's really all he does. Points, some threes. So I think both you could drop Sharp for Simmons if you don't need points and if you only need your weird sort of out of position rebounds, assists, steals. So more of those peripheral stats. So I would hold Brown, consider dropping Sharp if you feel like you're strong enough in points. Yes, and it is detrimental to fantasy. That is the downside of resting these guys when they have soft tissue injuries. It does hurt our fantasy teams, but obviously, well, maybe they should, but they don't. The teams don't care about our fantasy teams. All right, that will do for the pre-game show. Let me just check that there's no breaking injury news. Nope. Nothing has come up. So, yeah, keep an eye on lineups. The few players that we're monitoring, probably the bigger names that we're keeping an eye on are LaMelo Ball, Zach LaVine, probably in Denver, Christian Brown to some degree, Keegan Murray to a lesser extent, and that's probably it. That's probably most of the major news. And then just watching the Brooklyn rotation tonight. I will be back with a post-game show later today or tonight, wherever you are. Thank you again, as always, everyone, for listening and tuning in and joining us and downloading. I'm Adam King. This has been the Balls Deep pre-game show. Until next time, catch up.
You just listened to another episode from the Fantasy Basketball International Podcast Network. Thanks for joining us. And for more information about joining our community, please check out our website at